Well, first of all, I just wanted to welcome everybody. I'm going to call to order this annual meeting of the Weavers Guild of Minnesota. And this is the first annual meeting to be conducted 100% online. So we'll see how that goes. I can see a lot of you, so that's kind of fun. I thought I'd be talking just to a screen. My name's Celeste Grant, and I'm the current president of the Weavers Guild, which means I'm in the second year of a 3-year term. First year being president-elect, now president, next year past president. So it's been quite a year. I'm really just here to say welcome and to pass you on for a moment to Anna Landis-Betts, who's going to explain all the technical stuff that I always mess up. And you'll be hearing more from me in a little while. So welcome, and I'm really glad to see you all.
Thank you, Celeste. So as Celeste noted, we are using Zoom this evening. This is a virtual meeting. Some folks just to give name to are Brittany Pentek, the board secretary. She will be moderating the chat function. So if you have questions or thoughts, type those into the chat, and there'll be a Q&A section at the end where questions will be answered. This meeting will be recorded. So if you're having trouble with your connection, please turn your video off. That'll help ease some of the bandwidth on your internet and may help with the video projection that you're seeing. And then note that your microphone will be muted during the meeting. So if you have thoughts, again, use the chat, and on the screen you should see where to find the chat function. So if you are on a computer, you should have a toolbar at the lower end of your screen, and you click on chat and a window should appear that you can type into. Make sure you hit enter once you've typed your words, otherwise we can't see it. And then for those calling in, know that there is a slideshow being presented and it will be posted on the website next week. So their schedule for tonight, we'll hold the board elections. Those will take the first 20 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion around the year in review. We'll have a short break, and then we'll take a look at what's coming ahead. And then at the end, we'll have a 25-minute session for questions and answers. So send in your questions in the chat or raise your hand at the end, and you may have a chance to speak with your mic unmuted. From there, I will pass it over to Maddie.
Awesome, thanks, Anna. As you can tell from the very exciting photo of the I voted stickers, we're hoping all of you have voted or will vote after our exciting conversation about our nominees tonight. So thanks everyone for being here. If you're not familiar, for some reason my last name never shows up. I think I'm pointing at it, maybe I'm not. My name is Maddie Barch. I'm your past president. So I was president last year for fiscal year 19. And before we kind of hear from our candidates, I just wanted to run through a few things. First, I want to give a big shout out to the nominating committee, and I see at least a few of you out there. So specifically, Karen Mullen, Winnie Matilla, Gail Grosvenor, Ann Eaton Johnson, and Karen Knutson, our WGM staff member, for all their help in pulling together a great pool of candidates this year. So if you're unfamiliar with the nominating committee and how it works, or if that sounds like maybe something you'd like to learn more about so that you could participate on the nominating committee maybe in the future, the nominating committee's role is to solicit candidate nominations from WGM membership in order to fill officer and director positions that will be expiring in the next fiscal year. So we start the process in January or February, and we reach out to all of WGM membership. So being a part of the board is open to any active member of WGM. And this year, our focus was on finding specific members who have skill sets that fill needs at the board level. So we can really be a organization that is well-rounded at our board level. And so what the nominating committee does is we send out an ask with information about what our staff, what our board is missing, and who we're thinking, these types of folks might be good members. And then people will write back and we follow up with those individuals to see how they'd like to share their talent with WGM and if that's through board service. So every year there's a different number of spots and roles that are open. That includes at-large members and then officers. So that's like the president-elect position. So like myself, Celeste, and Linda, who you'll hear from a little bit. Other things like treasurer, some of those positions. So each year it's a little bit of a different kind of flavor for what we're looking to achieve. But this specific year, we were looking to fill one president-elect's position. It's a 3-year term. And all of these candidates will start in the fiscal year of 2021, which for the Weavers Guild in Minnesota is September 1st of 2020 through August 30th of 2021. That's our fiscal year for 2021. So they'll all start September 1st. So one president-elect position, and then 5 member-at-large positions, which those are 2-year terms. And so, as I said before, the voting is open to all current WGM members. And how we can vote is either online. Karin has written up some really wonderful emails and sent them to you. And it's also on the WGM blog with links for how you can vote and connect with that. You can also do a paper ballot. Online voting closes on Saturday at noon. So that's June 27th. We wanted to make sure that if you haven't voted yet, I'm actually in that camp of having not voted yet, even though I'm the chair of the nominating committee, so don't feel bad if you haven't. But I wanted to actually hear from our candidates today to learn a little bit more about them before I voted. So you still have till Saturday at noon to online vote. And then if you're doing a paper ballot, which you can print out and fill out, and you can use your favorite pen to fill in the bubbles, it would be very exciting. Those have to be postmarked by June 27th as well. So Saturday is kind of the deadline to be thinking about if you haven't yet done it. There's still definitely some time. And then when we'll kind of hear about the results will be the board secretary, so Brittany, and WGM staff will tally votes. And then they'll announce winners of the folks who are going to be joining our board this next year, the week of July 6th. And that will be via the draft and on the website. So if after tonight, you don't hear anything next week, that's because tallies are being, taken. And also we're waiting to make sure if anyone mailed some in that they have ample time to come in. And then you'll hear shortly after that who's going to be our next board candidates. So enough of my exciting explanation of all the rules and all that stuff. So let's hear from the nominees. And we'll just kind of go where I'll say a name and then that individual will have like a minute to a minute and a half to share a little bit about themselves. And so each nominee has also shared their bio via the WGM blog too. So again, if you miss something or you hear something that sounds interesting, you can go to the blog and check out more information about each individual. So let's start with our president-elect nominee, Amanda Anderson.
Great, thank you. And I gotta say, what a difference a couple of months can make. When the email first went out asking for members to consider board service, like who knew that this is what the world was gonna look like? There's so much change in how we interact with folks, how we can generate income for our guild, and how we can ultimately share our love of fiber arts. And while it's scary, I see some real bright spots for us in the guild. One key bright spot is how much renewed excitement there is in the United States for creating things by hand. More folks are cooking meals, tending gardens, and sewing materials than have in recent decades. And we can harness this newly discovered passion for creating things through our talents and tools within the guild. We can show whole new generations who enjoyed cooking and gardening and sewing about weaving. The strategic planning exercise that is to be undertaken can truly set the stage for future-proofing and harnessing opportunities that 6 months ago we wouldn't have even had on our radar. But to do that, we're going to need to have deep conversations, do our research, and come to consensus. I can help. I am not an expert in weaving. I have a fancy wheel, which I have yet to spin well on, and I have so much to learn about the loom that is sitting downstairs in my house. But I am an expert in business management, And in addition to running a successful technology and operations team with a large US bank, I also specialize in strategy and delivering projects. And I would be honored to be a part of this monumental journey with you. So thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Amanda. And so now we'll hear from our at-large members. So Barb Daiker, are you there?
So Barb Daiker, I am new to participating at the, or considering being part of the board. I have been members of many boards, mostly professional boards. However, I'm super passionate about fiber and spinning and weaving and all of those things. I've been a spinner since 2000, a weaver since 2011. I've taken a number of classes at the Weavers Guild, and each one of them has just made my passion even brighter. I bring a fair amount of organizational expertise. I run the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Minnesota. And in that role, I get to bring very diverse opinions together and try to work through creative solutions. And I think that if I was on the board, that's something that I could contribute to this board. And I also have gotten to know a few people as I've been meandering around the Weavers Guild by volunteering. So I've been at the Shepherd's Harvest and at the a number of farmers markets, and then also the state fair, and all of those times have brought me closer and gotten to know a number of members. So I look forward to the opportunity should it be presented to me, and if not, I will still be a very active member of the Guild. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. You will see that my video has disappeared, and that's because my connection is doing unique things. So let's go ahead, if Neil is not there, then to go to Melba, if she is there to share a bit about herself.
I'm here. Can you
Perfect.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I take crummy photos. I don't take selfies. And so what you see on the screen is a photo of me at one of our outreach events. I think one of the farmers markets. Anyway, so this is Melba Granlund, and I'm seeking re-election to the board for another 2-year term. I've been on the board for 4 years, and I have acted as the chair, first the co-chair, and then the chair of the Volunteer and Outreach Committee during that time. And in my bio that I posted that you were able to read in the meeting announcement, I told you about how it was I came to spinning and weaving, but I didn't share anything about my professional experience while working. When I joined the board in 2016, I had recently retired from a job as a litigation paralegal for a large Minneapolis-based law firm of over 200 attorneys. And during the last 10 years that I was at the firm for 23 years. And during the last 10 years working, I was also the pro bono coordinator for the firm. So my job was to wrangle these over 200 attorneys to volunteer some of their time to do pro bono work. And as you can imagine, that wasn't any small task. So when I joined the board and found out that there had been nobody who was currently or had recently coordinated any of our volunteer or outreach programs, it was easy for me to say, well, I can do that. I just left a job doing that very same thing. And so that's how it started. And I can say that our volunteer and outreach program is now a very robust program. We have many dedicated people, such as Barb, who just mentioned that she's done a lot of these events for us, and she's not alone. We have a core group of people that always show up. I get a hold of, I reach out to them, and I hardly ever get a no. And if I do, it's because of a family obligation or whatever. I'm just amazed at all that you people do or are willing to do. So I want to be sure and thank you for your willingness to share your talents and passions with the public, also with each other, even, just within the Guild. I have been so impressed by everybody's willingness to share their knowledge and share their you know, experiences with other people, whether it be spinning or weaving or in the dyeing. So I just want to take an opportunity to be sure and say thank you to all of you for doing that. So over the past 4 years, we've been in many places to spread the word about our guild and to showcase the talent and creativity of our members and our instructors. And I would love to continue working on doing that same thing, to continue working with the volunteers and to continue working on the board to provide whatever it is I can offer, whatever skill set I have to share. I'd be happy and honored to continue doing that. So thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Melba. Next we have Patty Johnson. Patty, are you able to hop on? I know you were driving home, it sounded like.
Unmute. Hi, I'm here.
Perfect.
I'm not nearly as prepared as everyone else is. I was visiting Jane Conant, and I thought I'd be home 2 hours ago. But for those of you that know Jane, she's doing fine. She's been shut in a lot. So really felt like I couldn't leave her. Anyways, my experience, well, I know we're moving into new chapters, maybe with the Textile Center, new buildings, maybe not new buildings, looking at new education ways. And my experience has mostly been with the Weavers Guild more like 10 years ago before my husband got ill and passed away. And I just felt like it's time to kick back in and do what I can see, whatever I can do for the Guild. For those of you that don't know, I was president of the Textile Center when we did buildings, so I hold a lot of history. I did chaired the first fiber fairs that were in the new building the first couple years. I ran a small business for all of my life. It was a dairy supply business, and then I opened Color Crossing after we sold that business. And I'm kind of closing down the retail part of that, but keeping the studio. So we have 15 studio artists that work in the building. And I don't know, I feel so disjointed. Anyways, that's who I am and that's what I do. And would love to help the Guild figure out what our next steps are, because it seems like they're going to be challenging for at least another year, I'm guessing. So yeah, you can go on to the next.
Thanks, Patty. All right, next we have.
Was that me?
Yeah.
All right, here I am. Hi, everybody. My name's Sarah Nassif. I've been a board member for the last almost 2 years.
So could you guys hear me on that?
Can you hear
Yes.
me?
We can hear both of you, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I have just really enjoyed my experience on the board, working with everybody to move the Guild forward in its mission to preserve and advance the arts of weaving, spinning, and dyeing. And a couple of areas that I've sort of ended up focusing in on is on equity, inclusion, and diversity, and looking at how does the community of weavers that exists today support the community of weavers that we want to have tomorrow? And where are there pieces of the puzzle that are missing? And how can we align ourselves as an organization and see the work of including very intentionally audiences that aren't currently enjoying the resources of the Guild, in order to not only share the resources, but also to build a strong future for the Guild. So really enjoyed being a part of the equity and inclusion work that began about a year ago with 16 volunteers who participated in a three-session exploration that we have just shared out on the website. It's been sort of a longer process, but learning a lot and really looking forward to some other news later in the meeting about where we hope to go with that. I have a background as a data analyst, and I noticed that we have a real lack of data management fortitude at the Guild. And so I've been working along with Beth Barrow on researching some data systems that might help us upgrade how we track and manage our membership and reach out to new people so that we can understand who we are and how to reach out to new people. So I think the Weavers Guild is a jewel. It's an amazement that it's an 80-year-old steadfast community of people literally teaching each other. And I really look forward to helping us build a inclusive and strong community going forward.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, and then our last at-large nominee, Keith Pierce, who I think I saw earlier.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks, Betsy. Well, in preparing my speech, I was surprised at the variety of activities that I've participated in within the Guild. That's probably my strength more than anything. Been here 8 years. I joined Bandidos in particular to revive my long dormant passion for band weaving and tablet weaving. And for the last several years, I've led that group, and our big group project is weaving and assembling the State Fair ribbons that the Guild passes out every year. I've been a student. I've been designing many band and tablet weaving classes. I tend to focus on techniques that you find in ethnic groups around the world. I find that to be my most avid interest. In outreach, I've given demonstrations at the State Fair and other venues. And I think probably my most significant role has been connecting with a group of Southeast Asian women weavers, the Karen group, who weave phenomenal backstrap woven pieces. Sorry for the dog. I'm outside, so I've got all these distractions. I also found that I have a flight pattern overhead, so you may hear a plane too. I did a bit of technical support. Back when Becky Franklin was director, I published the draft while she was on maternity leave. So I played many roles. I feel like I've received much more than I've given, and so I view my candidacy for the board as an opportunity to give back to the Guild. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. So again, thank you to all our nominees for being willing to share your skills and passion and helping WGM to achieve its mission. For everyone, there's still time to vote. And also we have a break coming up shortly, and it might be a great time to go and vote. So stay tuned for results in about maybe 2 weeks or so. And again, thanks to everyone, and thanks to members who are rolling off the board this year as well for their service.
There we go. Had to hit the right button. Well, traditionally, the annual meeting is about the past fiscal year, which for us is the year that ended about a year ago in August of 2019. But as you all know, the world is just kind of gone crazy. The world has changed a lot. And because of that, we're just going to touch briefly on 2019. We'll spend more time on what has gone on this year and what our plans are, as much as we can make plans next year. So Oh, I think we're on the wrong slide here. Can we go back one for a moment? Yeah, right here. This is just a reminder of what was going on at the end of fiscal year 2019. We wanted to show you just a few highlights to get your heads back into that space. We had, I think we had completed or near completed a program called Power to the People. It explored historic and sustainable textile production methods through classes, talks, pop-ups. It was funded through a Metropolitan Regional Arts Council grant and was highly successful. And we have got a lot of outreach materials that we've rebranded using this, so you'll see that logo still. We also had completed video snapshots that were created in partnership with the Twin Cities Public Television and shown for the first time, I think, publicly anyways, at the annual meeting last year. They featured guild members and gave us exposure to gave communities exposure to us who had likely never heard of us. They had, I think there were 6, but there were titles like Fighting Dementia and Stress with Weaving, Explore a More Sustainable Approach to Making, How Weaving and Spinning Bring Communities Together. So they were, high quality, very nice short videos. And I think they're still on our website if you haven't seen them. We also began conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it was Betsy who mentioned the 16 individuals who got together with a consultant who also funded with a grant from MRAC, the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council, and the follow-up document that was created. And it was really just putting our toe in the water with this work. But now we can move to that next page. We were strategically positioned for success in fiscal year 20. We started the new fiscal year with big plans. This was the year now that I started last year as president, and I was really excited to continue our discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had the charge to develop a new strategic plan, and for the first time, we were looking at pulling in a consultant from outside and really looking big. We believe that up until then, the strategic plans had all been done in-house without outside help to see a bigger picture. And so we were really looking forward to that. We'd interviewed and almost hired a consultants to help us with that. And we were also planning for our 80th birthday. We weren't planning a single celebration. We had a calendar and a timeline and a lot of ideas, and we were going to have something happening constantly. Next slide. But the best laid plans. On March 13th, just as things were beginning to pick up, we were literally about to sign a contract with a consultant for the strategic plan. Governor Walz declared a peacetime emergency on March 13th. On March 14th, the board of directors met in an emergency session and voted to close to the public the guild. And by close, I mean we canceled all classes, workshops, private lessons, and talks within the guild, and offered full refunds to everybody who had already registered. We canceled or declined all outreach events. We closed FiberSource, and we closed the guild office to the public and to students, to teachers, and to volunteers. Staff was instructed to work from home as much as possible. And so that vote was a vote that couldn't be avoided. The governor's orders required it. But with that vote, we cut off virtually all sources of income for the guild for an undetermined and an undeterminable amount of time. Okay, next slide. And then, a month ago, the world changed again. We can move on to the next slide. But as in the past, the guild adapts and we do what we have to do. That photo, by the way, of Maddie is not an old photo. That's a current photo, even though we're talking about the past. It kind of, you might have some difficulty determining that. The building remains locked and closed to the public, even to today. The work of the guild continues, however, mostly from our various homes. And I wanted to take a moment to run through some of these things because it is not at all apparent to people outside of the guild, outside of the group of people working on these things, what is actually going on. Well, we launched and leveraged Zoom technology like you're experiencing today to continue all guild meetings, which means all the board of director meetings, committee meetings, and we have a lot of committees. I'm not going to name them because, like, people at the Academy Awards, I will forget the most important ones, I'm sure. So, but we have a lot of committees and the interest groups, and we have a lot of interest groups. One of the unintended but positive consequences about this is increased statewide member engagement. People who couldn't participate in those meetings and activities now can, and maybe on the call tonight. The Finance Committee meets regularly, and it's important today. But in addition to the regular work, the Finance Committee is revising the financial policies and procedures, which haven't been looked at for a while. In the process of doing just regular work, new committees are still being formed. There's a personnel committee that is being formed to deal with employment policies and general employment issues. We're currently revising the employee handbook, and those are not short. Some of the committee work that the development committee is focused on is increasing our income. There's been at least 3 grant applications submitted in the last couple months, and a loan application. And I know we don't do loans usually, but this is for the Federal Forgivable Loan Program, the Payment Protection Program, and you'll hear more about that later. We put an application in for roughly $24,000. Letters to members also resulted in more than $10,000 in donations from 60 different donors. So there's been some coming in. Fiber Source Curbside was launched in mid-May, and that means that people can order and pick up items, and that has brought in some income. The government, and that was not an easy thing to set up. Oh, we wanted to thank the donors, the 60 donors for the $10,000. That is a tremendous amount, more than we expected and really needed at the moment. But back to the Fiber Source. The governor's orders required a written policy and procedure plan on how things were to be handled before we could even do as much as curbside pickup. So everything has taken more time and more thought than the ordinary. There's been meetings and calls with the Textile Center to ensure that we're not working at odds with each other, but that we're working together to return to normal. The Outreach Committee had organized events at the American Craft Council, Shepherd's Harvest, the State Fair, and one by one, each of those have been canceled. We launched a fiber book club online. That's going. We'll be reading The Golden Thread, How Fabric Changed History by Cassia St. Clair. The Education Committee has spent a lot of time beginning to develop online education. This is something that we planned and we saw in the future, but we didn't see it today. So it's been a scramble to get things up and moving and working, and we're beginning to see the results. I just went online before the meeting, and you can now register for a class. Well, we've got 2 talks coming up. Heather McKenzie's multi-cloth talk coming up soon. And you can register for that. And Maddie Barch has a class, or a talk on regenerative dye gardening for cold climates, and that's in July. Heather also has a class that is you could register for today on the same topic, but it's a tablecloth. I have it written here somewhere. I'm not seeing it. But in any event, those are just beginning. We are still unable to have classes in the building, and we're unable to predict exactly when we will be able to have classes. But there's more to check out online that's new. There's studio tours, there's, books, there's other things on our website that we've been using our website more than usual. Also, part of what's been going on in the background here is the Fiber Festival has been completely revamped. And I don't want to say too much now because there'll be more about that later, but that is a really tremendous amount of work, and you'll see, it's fabulous. And then, of course, the election preparations, the candidate recruitment, ballot preparation, technology. I know that this is not everything that's been going on. So, what is it, 3 months that the guild has been closed? Things have been happening. We can move to the next slide. No, we're missing one. Yes. So one of the focuses and one of my, close to my heart focuses is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've been prioritizing this within the board and in our program designs. What I wanted to do today is announce that we are in the process of developing a permanent diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that in July we will make a motion at the board to establish this committee, and also to amend the bylaws to have it included in the bylaws so that it will be a permanent committee that will help guide the guild. The goal will be increasingly important to the guild as time goes on and Minnesota's population grows increasingly diverse. The whole idea about diversity, equity, and inclusion is perfectly aligned with the guild's mission. Weaving, spinning, and dyeing are fundamental to the human experience. And our mission encompasses practices and traditions across all human cultures. So we'll be the richer for having a more diverse board. An all-inclusive organization secures a strong membership base for the future. So that's our effort to make it permanent, is to include it in the bylaws. It will report to the board. It all hasn't been worked out, but what we see as really setting annual goals and then reporting back to the board so that things are actually happening. Really, we want to thank the community. The amount of work that's gone on is really mind-boggling. And it is almost, well, I don't want to take away from our staff, but it's, the volunteers have played a tremendous amount of, it's been, a lot of it has been volunteer focused and led, and the hardcore work comes from volunteers. The Weavers Guild was founded as an all-volunteer organization in 1940, and it continues to be primarily an all-volunteer organization. We rely on the generous volunteer community of members and supporters to serve as ambassadors of the organization. At events, exhibits, festivals, the volunteers log in over 3,000 hours each year to demonstrate. And they reach new audiences by bringing weaving and spinning and dyeing to life and by advocating the Guild's mission. Volunteers perform a wide variety of tasks. They serve on the board of directors, evaluate and price donated goods, maintain the guild library and archives, act on commitments and work groups, finance, education, all the various groups, volunteer in the office, assemble, clean, and repair equipment, coordinate on-site and off-site exhibitions, create ribbons for the guild awards at the state fair, and so much more. It's the volunteers and the members that really have the knowledge and expertise of the guild. Thank you. You'll hear from me later. But now I'm going to pass on to Matt, I believe, our treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Schutz, and I'm the board treasurer, and I'm just wrapping up my first full year at the Guild as treasurer, and I am running on a 2-year term. I'm also here with my lovely wife, Elizabeth, who's a fellow board member at the Guild. So, responsibilities of a treasurer, I'm also the chair of the finance committee, and I'm also a member of the executive committee. Given that my background was in not-for-profit accounting, I'm a CPA, this was kind of a good fit for me. So I just was happy to take on this role. So what I'm gonna go through is just a couple things about the prior year. In tradition, we usually do recap the prior year. As Maddie said at the very beginning, our fiscal year runs from September 1st to August 31st. So we're actually gonna be approaching our next fiscal year end quite soon. So how we ended the year was actually a very small net loss, which we had of $800. So typically the Guild budgets $300,000 budget, and we always like to break even. Like that's usually the goal of a not-for-profit. And that was pretty darn close. So we actually do have a couple things that we do at year end, and that's the only reason that we didn't hit it at the $0 mark. But that's neither here nor there. We did a great job finishing up the last fiscal year. So our annual budget is made up of $300,000. So what does that really mean? This is basically based on all of the different sources that we receive. So these are sources of funding that the Guild receives throughout the year. And then we can base our projections and build our budget based on those prior year historical activity that happened. And then all these foreseen gifts and grants that we might receive in the future. So that's how we build the budget. So what is it made up of? In that pie chart that you're seeing on the left-hand side, it's our revenue sources. So if you add 2 of those large pie pieces together, you'll see that 72% of our budget is actually made up of tuition, fees, and grants. That's a large sum of money that's coming just from 2 sources. The other 2 other slices of the pie are basically based around our sales. So our fiber fare and our fiber source, which is the store at the Guild. And then 8% of our membership dues that come to us, that's making up pretty much the rest of it. And there's a very small other miscellaneous in there as well. And that's just small things that we receive, from a vending machine or something like that, or from a copier. So not much there. So what do we do with all that money? We basically spend it all on programming. So when you look at the pie chart to the right, you're going to see that there's 82% or 82.5, so round up or down as you want. And that's going to be based on program services. So that's a very accounting term, and it's actually an IRS term that we use on our annual tax form. But what does that really mean? We're spending 82% of the money that we make at the Guild on educational classes and workshops for the community, the membership, and basically you and I. We're also spending on inventory for the Guild's fiber source and the fiber fare. We're also doing annual sales like fiber fare, and I don't want to release the new name for the new annual sale, but it's pretty much just an annual sale that we have every year that this allocation goes towards. We also lease a space on University Avenue, and that money goes to leasing that space throughout the year. Then we also have a few admin costs associated with it. A few other chunks that are in there are that we do spend a lot on membership and fundraising. So fundraising would be that we actually allocate resources to looking for grants and then attracting membership as well. So That's a really big slice of the pie that goes to program services, which I want to point out. And a lot of our volunteers kind of pick up a lot of the other costs that are associated with the Guild. So that's a really good thing. And I want to echo that thank you for all the volunteers out there. So we ended the year, last fiscal year, with $800, basically a break-even budget. September through March, we were business as usual. I was pretty much in the easiest treasurer role I've ever experienced. Literally just having monthly meetings saying, yes, we're doing great. We got our grants on time. We're doing classes and everything happens. So again, to talk about what Celeste has stated is we all are experiencing the first pandemic I've ever been in, especially one that's kept me in home for the last 102 days. So what does that mean? The state ordered us to close. So how does that affect finances? It's really detrimental, actually. It's saying, hey, you can't hold classes and you can't sell anything. So that's basically a complete shutdown. So what did we do? Well, we had to issue refunds. Immediately, we issued all refunds to anybody that was in a class in the later part of the spring term. Then we also had to figure out a new educational outlook, but that was kind of pushed aside because this was just March we're talking about. So we're pretty, we're really in a very near term short thinking at this point in time. We did take advantage though of some really good resources. Right away, the CARES Act was passed and the small business loans were going out. So we were able to secure a paycheck protection program forgivable loan, which was given to us in May, and then also allows us to pay for certain Guild expenses between May, June, and July. And I just think that that was a major win for us because it kind of gave us a time to say like, okay, we don't need to panic. We actually have some resources coming in where we have time to strategically plan for our future. And that's been a very, very positive thing that's happened. We've also been seeking other alternative resources, filing for grants that are available from a lot of different Minnesota-based not-for-profits that are out there. And we've also just been all hands on deck doing that. We've been receiving extremely generous donations. And I mean extremely generous. These are not in our budget. And it's just basically another way to say thank you to everyone that's out there that has donated and who continues to support the Guild. Now, we are also finding new ways to reduce some expenses as well. Being that we're closed, a lot of our expenses are due to cost of goods sold. So when we're not selling anything, we're not really spending money on the inventory that's going out the door. So that's really easy. We are just starting to ramp things up though. So that's a really good thing to talk about. So when you're talking about we're closed, we actually did open up curbside pickup. So now most people in the city of Minneapolis or in the Twin Cities area or in the state of Minnesota are actually doing these, by appointment types of pickups, and so to speak. So we are ramping up services where the store is technically open, but you just can't physically go into the building. We're also doing online classes. I'm not sure if you saw the latest draft, but there are a couple online classes that are going to be available. And we might be rolling these out to be expanded in the future. So these silver linings, so to speak, are just great that we can actually take time to step back, really adapt, and we might be changing the look of the Guild in future years. So looking at the future years, we are building our budget right now. It's going to be extremely tasking on the finance committee and a lot of the education committee and the staff that's at the Guild. So just know that we have a strategic plan going in place right now internally that we're going to make sure that we look at every source that we can to ensure that the Guild is prosperous in the future. Things are trajecting up and it looks great because we are, like I said, opening up business and we're actually going to be starting online classes soon. How that rolls out and expands in the future, we'll only know, but just know that it's so hard to actually predict the future based on a pandemic where we have no idea, and especially without a vaccine out there. The finance committee is doing all it can at the moment, and we meet basically every month, but also we have meetings in between. So it seems like the work is just continually in a good light there. So I do want you to ask any questions that you might have in the chat so that we can answer those for you at the end of this program. I don't want to give any specific numbers for anything that's happening in the future or how we're going to end the current year because frankly, that would just be a lot of speculation. And right now, every day that we get further ahead is the more we know about what happened. So I did just want to say thank you again. This has been just a great opportunity for me to be such a growth opportunity too as the treasurer. And I think this is actually going to lead us into our break, which is a great thing too. So, thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I think I'm up here. This is my slide. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Serrano. I am the incoming president of the Guild. Just by way of background, I am a weaver, spinner, and dyer. I've been a member of the Guild. I don't know exactly how many years, but I want to say it's probably 6 or 7 years. And I have to say, from my experience as being a member, I know how important this community is and how rich and generous the community is in terms of sharing information. So I also would like to, before I dive in, thank Maddie and Celeste for the guidance that they've given to me over the last year to position me to take the reins in September. It's a daunting challenge, but I know with Celeste at my side and you know, if Amanda takes the helm as the president-elect, you know, I'll be surrounded by people who can help, in addition to, of course, to the staff, the committees, the volunteers, and the members. So just know that I take this role really seriously, and I fully understand that we are, in fact, in unprecedented times. So you can see it's almost inconceivable to think about that would be in a place where we have a global pandemic, where the globe is basically shut down. We're likely to see a recession, and we have the extent of racial injustice and unrest in this country all converging at the same time. I think, I know for myself, I almost can't wrap my head around where we are as the globe. So clearly, given the state of the world, we're facing challenges. But for those of you who know me, I am an optimist. I believe that from challenges comes good. And so I believe that in the coming year, while this is going to test us all in an unprecedented way, I think this actually will give us the opportunity to experiment, to learn, to leverage technology. I mean, think about us all on Zoom. I mean, I had never been on Zoom, you know, 4 months ago, and here we are now, you know, completely comfortable interacting via Zoom. So I am hopeful that given where we are in the world, we're going to be able to do things that we might not have done if things had been, you know, business as usual. I think we'd all collectively say, well, no, actually give us the world before March, but here we are. We don't have the luxury of going back in time. So we'll make the most of what we have. Next slide, please. So as we have started, oh, I'm sorry, let's see. One more, Betsy, yeah. As we have started to think about planning ahead to F21, I think it's really important we all sort of attempt to level set and ground ourselves on
Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we are having an issue with the speaking function. I'm going to try to troubleshoot really quick.
Okay, I'll wait for you.
Oh, you're back. All right, go for it.
Okay. So anyway, so assumptions moving forward. So as we think about planning for next fiscal year, oh, and you can advance, yes, thank you. As we think about planning for next year, we're making certain assumptions to make sure that we are trying to be as realistic about where we are as we can be. I think we would all agree we're likely to face depressed demand, not only for classes and goods. And I think that's a function of, you know, people just won't have the extent of the disposable income that they have had pre-COVID. And also we do believe there's going to be a reticence, not only with students, but instructors in terms of coming together to have classes. So we have to assume that that situation is going to continue. So it's going to be critical that we find different ways to reach our audiences. And Betsy and Karin are going to both speak to how are we connecting, not only as a community, but as a way to continue the work that our committees are doing, continuing to get together in our study groups and whatnot. And then I think it also goes without saying that member and community support is absolutely critical. This community happens to be generous in time, in spirit, and with donations. And I am confident that we'll be able to collectively get through this in the coming year, because I know our members are deeply committed to making sure we get through this. So next slide. So as I said, we're in the process of looking at our fiscal 21. And so what does that look like? It looks at looking at the external environment. Where are we? What are the realities of what I've just talked about? And in light of all of that, how do we plan for the coming year? So there's certainly a financial aspect of this. So, but there's also what strategies are we going to employ to be able to have, fiscal viability as a company, or sorry, not a company, as a community. So here's the objective. The Guild will be a viable organization well positioned to navigate and adapt to our new normal. So the viability is important. So we need to continue to be stewards of our financial situation. We also need to continue to think about what is absolutely critical for our community to serve the needs of our community in the upcoming year. As Celeste mentioned, we are in fact adapting and have adapted our operations and programming. As I said, you'll hear more about that from Karen and Betsy, but that's absolutely imperative, because if we try to do business as usual, it's not going to work. Not to mention, we couldn't today anyways because of the governor's order. As I said before, we want to maintain the strength in the heart of the community. That's critical. And last, I would say focus and prioritization, because there's going to be so much heavy lifting in terms of thinking about what can we do in this new normal. It's going to be really important that we are really clear to say we're going to do these 5 things. And if we do these 5 things well, we will be able to achieve our objective of maintaining viability. This won't be a year of lots of wishful hopes about doing things that aren't prioritized. Now, of course, we're going to listen and hear from the membership in terms of what you all believe are important. But once we lock that plan, we're going to really try to prioritize so that we're able to deliver that. Of course, we're going to have to pivot and adapt at midway, because let's say we all get the green light to go back, but then in November we have to shut down again. I mean, that's unfortunately going to be the nature of the upcoming year. And so we're really thinking through that. So my parting remarks tonight are a couple things. Just know that not only am I committed, you've got a deeply committed board of directors. We've got significant committee work, the staff, and you all as members. We collectively have this commitment, and we'll be able to leverage it, in the coming year, which I think is absolutely critical, to maintain the health of the organization. I want you to know that I'm deeply thankful for everything that everybody does. Echoing Celeste's comments, we couldn't do, frankly, any of this without the volunteers, the members, the committees, and all the good work of the community. So I want to express my deep thanks. And then the last thing I want to say is it's an ask for the members. Please stay engaged. I know it's hard to be engaged in these times when we all collectively kind of want to hunker down and be at home. But if you can find a way to stay engaged, through technology or otherwise, by giving us your thoughts and ideas, that is a gift to us, and we deeply value it. So that engagement will help us navigate in these uncertain times. And so I just want to end by saying thank you to everybody, and more to come. We've got our work cut out for ourselves this summer, but as Matt alluded to, our job this summer is to create a plan, a holistic plan for the upcoming year that we will be prepared to share with the membership at the end of August. And so stay tuned on that. But you'll get some glimmers of what we have in the hopper in listening to Betsy and Karen. So I think, Betsy, you're next.
Thank you, Linda. As others have said before me, holy moly, have we had a year. And I can't say thank you enough to all the work that our board and our committees, our volunteers, and our members at large have done, to do heavy lifting, to pause, reflect, and steer the ship, right the ship. And then also to offer encouragement along the way. Personally, I'm really grateful for the kind and thoughtful emails that I've received over the last 3 months. It's been really wonderful to get those, so thank you. In education and outreach, we are taking this moment to think about some big things that we have had on the back burner, but really haven't had a chance to address until now. And now it's imperative. We have embraced and are utilizing technology, especially Zoom, to be able to sustain some of our programming with the benefit, as others had mentioned before, of improving access. We've been able to see members throughout the state and even people as far as New York be able to access our programming, which is really exciting. We're also planning for the return of in-person classes, but really putting a lot of energy towards harnessing digital technology right now. Heather McKenzie, one of our instructors and next education committee chair, is launching launching a triple cloth class on July 1st. Be sure to go to the website and check that out. She's giving a talk this Saturday about triple cloth structure and artists who use triple cloth in their work, which will be really fascinating. And then Maddie Bartsch, who we heard from earlier in the meeting, is giving a regenerative dye talk on July 11th. And both the talks are free, although we are asking for donations, which will go directly to the instructors to help cover honoraria. As we know, many artists have lost teaching opportunities and therefore income. So it's really important for us to be able to pay those artists who are doing work for us so that we can keep them fed and continuing to teach and be part of our community. And then we will slowly be rolling out more classes and talks throughout the summer. In terms of outreach, our outreach committee and our staff member, Ever Woodward, have been working on pulling together a series of studio tours that invite folks into artist studios within our community and hopefully throughout our state and our region eventually, to talk a little bit about their creative practice, the tools that they use, and their creative space. And we have one by Christine Novotny, who I believe is on this call. She's a resident, artist in residence up at North House Folk School, and her studio is incredible. So if you haven't checked that out, please go to our website and take a look. You'll find it on our blog, along with more studio tours to come. As we move forward with planning the return of in-person programming, which both Linda and Celeste, I believe, said we don't have a set date for that yet because there's still more to know. We are really thinking deeply about instructor and student safety. Last week, we sent an email survey out to instructors asking for their feedback about what it would take to help them feel safe teaching in the classroom. So right now we're putting attention and energy behind that, as well as pulling together in-person classes. And a lot of that work is centered in our education and outreach committees. So a big thank you to them for their thought and heavy lift behind those programs. And then lastly, we're working to research and identify possible grant opportunities to help support this programming. Since it's new programming, it's likely that it will operate at a loss at first. And so we're hoping that we can find some grant funds to support it and get us over that hump to the point where that we reach a critical mass of students to be able to cover the expenses of paying our teaching artists. So with that, I will turn it over to Karin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karin Knudsen, the operations manager. And I just want to say thank you for everyone for calling in for this call. I know that it's weird, and I hope that you're all potlucking at home, which I did by eating a mix of foods that I wouldn't normally put together. But just know that it does mean a lot to see your faces and know that you would take some time out of your day to just get an update on the Guild. So in terms of, I do the operations kind of membership wing of our many operations. And just one of the things that we have done since COVID-19 and that we'll continue to do is really prioritize connection with you. The draft will keep coming, the monthly newsletters, adding more content to our website, using Instagram with the hashtag show and tell, WGM show and tell, so that we can see your work and send it back out into the world. Because, I truly believe that we really value knowing and seeing what everyone else is doing, even if we can't see it in person. Just being able to talk with you kind of before the meeting and hear who's working on towels and who's weaving off their stash is really valuable. So please, like Linda said, please continue to do that and share with us what you're working on. One way we've also prioritized connection is moving those interest and study groups to Zoom, and we'll continue to use that platform moving forward. And it's, and it's one way that we're using your membership dues to suit you and to serve you, knowing that those groups still wanted to get together and providing a platform to do that. Another thing that we've done just to kind of help members out a little bit is that we changed the member invoicing on all of your member renewals to 60 days rather than 30, knowing that for some people just having a little bit of an extra time to pay would be helpful. So just a way to kind of adjust. And then in terms of connection to, I would love it if everyone on this call would submit something for the July 15th draft. That draft is going to be focused on member submitted content. It was listed in the last draft where it said, tell us what you're working on. So, and I've already had a couple people send in some things, a couple of people had sent in a recipe or two. So whatever you're working on, let's hear it and let's share it with each other in that draft. Also to serve you, we're working to increase kind of the availability of your access to the shop. I know that so many of you would prefer to buy in person. I hear it in your voices when you call and say, I need some colors. Can you please just help me? I totally hear that. So we're working to envision how people will come in person. For now, we have curbside pickup, which has been working. For me, it's been working really great. Using an online form. We've been adding in new items about every other week so that we can continue to kind of boost that out. And also just knowing that for some of you, you may not want to come into the guild right away. Even when we reopen, you may want to just swing by and have me meet you outside by your car, and that's going to be totally okay. So we will continue to keep that available and kind of increase that service. We are looking at reopening by appointment. The Textile Center opens by appointment the week after July 4th. We are going to let them go first, and then we'll open sometime later in July. We just want to make sure that we have all our safety procedures set up in place because our shop is pretty small. So we would just want to make sure that we have the right number of people who can comfortably shop so that we have some safety procedures set in place for, if you touch items, can we set them aside before they go back somewhere, and just kind of thinking through how that's going to look to make sure that it's the safest shopping experience possible and so that it's safe for our staff as well. As we've been kind of looking forward, we've been thinking about that kind of phased reopening and what things we can gradually add in. So that'll mean things like, starting to accept donations by appointment, which obviously, based on looking at that chart that lists all of our donations, those in-kind donations that come in that we then reprice and sell in the shop, they go into that bucket. So, it is a significant revenue stream. So just kind of envisioning how we can accept donations safely and make it safe for our donations to price and sort equipment. I saw Paula earlier this week through Glass and Mass and Paula Pfaff, and she has been busy pricing yarn in her basement. So she would love to bring it in so that she can take home and price more, and I would love to sell it. So we're kind of envisioning how that will work. As Betsy said, we're looking to broaden our funding base and just make sure that we're going after operations grants that maybe we didn't apply for in the past, and recognizing that very much we do need to apply for them now. And being able to tell a really impactful story about who we are and what we do. As I was working on the annual report and finishing that up, and that'll go on the website next week. It's the annual report for last fiscal year. I was able to include so many great quotes about people saying, what the guild means to them. And, it's just such a compelling story to me. And I know that's a compelling story to other people too. And then as we move forward, we'll want to restart our 80th celebration. So this beautiful logo that you see on the screen was created by Becca Ron in honor of our 80th. We had received a small grant for operating and for advertising revenue with Longthread Media. They're the publishers of Handwoven and Spinoff. And so you'll be seeing this logo in a couple small ads through them that we were able to get through a small advertising grant, featuring this very fun celebration, which speaks to who we are. And as we move forward, we are ready to, oh my gosh, I have so much more to say, you guys. Are you ready? Okay. Another thing, you know, just in terms of talking about like our, oh, there we go. Let's do it. So one of the big things that's come out of the spring and having a little bit extra time has been that the formerly Fiber Fair committee has been able to really focus on the sale. And Kathy Mayer, who's been leading that committee, and then there's a whole group of really critical guild members who are working on that. One of the things that she said at the beginning was, you know what, we can just view this as a nice distraction. It'll be fun to plan, and this can just be a thing that we can just work on. And it has been so nice to envision how can we move forward with an artisan sale that serves our members, that really validates all of the feedback that our shoppers have sent in and that the artists themselves have sent in. And how could we use, you know, we didn't have the sale last fall. We had decided in the previous spring to take a pause. So how can we honor that time away and really move forward strongly? So I'm just going to give you a couple updates of what that new sale is going to look like, in part because it's so exciting and it's so amazing, and it's such a great thing coming out of this time that feels like so much is uncertain, but yet this feels so good. So we have a new name, the Weavers Guild of Minnesota Plied, Dyed, and Woven Artisan Sale. And that comes, you know, straight out of knowing that we need a name that emphasizes who we are and what we do. You know, we create spun items, we create dyed items, and we create woven items. You know, weaving, spinning, and dyeing are the three features of our mission. And the name Artisan Sale really, to me, speaks to the quality of goods that have always been present at the sale and that we know will be present moving forward. So it's a way to market to the world out there and tell them, you know, this is such high quality work that you would really be missing out if you didn't come. We have a new date. We moved the sale into October, which one of the benefits of that is that always that forward looking where you think like, oh, November, the weather, maybe October will be nice. So it'd be nice to get ahead of some of the potential snow and just get ahead of some of the other sales in the world. You'll notice that on this list, we have dates for October, but then we also have an alternate date for April. And that's partly because in a COVID-based world, you have to recognize that we should plan for the sale this fall, but also provide another date to have a sale in case, you know, in case something should happen and we realize that that isn't the best plan for us. The committee is working on a no-go date, which is in mid-July. And at that point, we'll decide, yes, this fall, no, this fall, or maybe this fall and look something different, question mark. So we have a mid-July date for that. Another exciting thing is that we've compressed the sale to 2 days. That was directly from what members themselves said that they would like to see. We restructured the categories of goods for sale so that it really focuses on hand spun, hand dyed, hand woven, the work that reflects our mission and the work that reflects, you know, who we are and the quality of the work that we're doing. The most exciting thing to me, I think, is that we have found a new venue for the sale. It is the History and Heritage Center at the State Fairgrounds. And just looking at this photo, you can tell why this slide had to go last, because this photo is beautiful and we didn't want to upstage anything else. It's an amazing venue. It's filled with natural light. You know, it's so exciting to think about being at a venue where our artists could drive up and drop off their items, you know, go in and drive away and have this easy experience. And it's modern, you know, but it feels familiar because it's the State Fair. Everybody knows the State Fair. I know that I'm just covering it in the tiniest of detail here. And this, in a quote unquote normal year, would be really the highlight of this presentation, right? We could take a ton of time on it and we'd really be able to go into detail. Instead, what I'm going to tell you is that on July 8th at 6 p.m., we will have a full meeting just presenting on the Plied, Dyed, and Woven sale. So it'll be in the draft that comes out next week with the links, with the information, with a little bit more, but that'll be a chance to hear from Kathy Mayer, who's chairing the committee and has done an amazing job. And just, it'll be a chance for you to answer those questions that we just can't go into that kind of detail on a night like tonight. But yeah, lastly, I just wanted to thank everyone so much. And especially, you know, for continuing to pay your membership dues and continuing to contribute to the Guild. You know, every single time I go into the office, there is a check from someone, and half the time they have little notes and I almost cry. So just thank you. It means a lot, because when you can't really see your members, you almost forget who you're serving. And then you get, you know, a little note and yeah, and it just really hits home, because that is why we work here, is to serve you. So our next section will be Q&A, and then stick around at the very end. We will do a drawing for everyone who RSVP'd for the meeting.
Let's see, does the mic work? Are we unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you, Brittany.
Okay. I can't hear myself, which is the tricksy part. So, hello everybody. I'm so glad you're all sticking with it, and I know you're really just after the drawing. But first, a couple of fun questions here. So our first question is going to go to Matt. And again, just to reiterate, all of these questions are coming from the Zoom group chat. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a little button that looks like a chat bubble. So if you click that, then you can type your questions in there, and that is open and ready to receive questions. So I'll just read these to make sure that everybody is able to hear the questions, in addition to kind of having seen them go through the chat previously. So first question for Matt. Looking at the pie graphs that were shown as part of the presentation, the membership expenses appear higher than the membership revenues. Is this an apples to apples comparison, or is this comparing apples to oranges regarding the membership expenses and revenues?
Well, that's a great question. It would actually be more slightly apples to apples, but slightly more apples to oranges, because there are expenses and revenues that are equal within those two, but not all of it is. So without getting into the details too much, just know that, yeah, it's just because the same terminology was used, that is just more of a general lump for those two different categories on the revenue side and then also on the expense side. If that's a specific request, I can always send that information out in a more detailed fashion if you'd like to get more of that information like that. But hopefully that answers your question.
I think that might be good. It sounds like that's definitely an apples to oranges, and we can probably publish more details on that, Matt. I'm thinking maybe in like a future draft or blog or notes from the meeting. So thank you for confirming that that's an apples to oranges.
You're welcome.
Next question is for Celeste. Patty K. Johnson mentioned something about a new building. Is there something to report?
No. There has not been any talk about the new building. Realistically, space issues we had always intended to address within the strategic plan, which we have not got to. Right now, I can't remember the last time somebody mentioned that. It's kind of on the back burner. But when we get to the strategic plan, space is important, and that is one of the things that'll be talked about. I saw somewhere in here, someone answered and said that they were kind of always open. They were referring to the textile center. We're not actively looking or entertaining that, so.
So what I'm hearing is that we are continuing to rent from the textile center. We are, of course, thinking about space and how to maximize and utilize our space, and open to ideas on that if anybody has wonderful ideas to share.
And we will be addressing it within the strategic plan in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Yes, exactly.
Yep, this is Amanda. I would say it's probably going to be a pretty interesting question, simply given, this new normal we talked about earlier today is really changing the landscape for commercial real estate. So I'm very curious to see kind of where this conversation goes, given I don't think folks are going to be returning to their spaces the way they had in the past, and there might be some really fabulous opportunities for us.
Yep, exactly. And that's, to the extent there's been talk, it's been that who knows what's going to be there.
Got it.
Thank you both for answering that. Next question is for Karen. There was a question about the textile center is opening for appointments beginning soon. How does this affect us?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the Textile Center sent out an email today where they sent out the links to their appointment system. Basically how it will work is that someone will go online, they'll sign up for, they'll have so many slots per hour and then a 15-minute buffer in between those slots to clean whatever spaces were used. And they'll let so many people in the building during that like time frame. We have talked to the Textile Center about asking us if we could be kind of one of the potential slots so that everybody's using, in essence, the same appointment system for the building. Partly just because we recognize that we lease from within the Textile Center. We don't have control over the front door, they do. So it would make sense for us to kind of, so that everyone who's coming in the building, doesn't have this confusing, like, well, I signed up on a different system. How many different systems are there? However, I think that it's prudent to just go ahead and let the Textile Center test that out for us for a week or two and see how it goes. And then we can make adjustments and see how that'll work for us. But I feel confident that we'll be able to add our business onto that appointment system. And so that people can say, yeah, I'm signing up to come to the Textile Center, but directly to go to WGM. And then, of course, in talking with Nancy Gross, who is their director of administration, she also runs their shop. She and I, every time I'm there twice a week for curbside pickup. So every time I'm there, she and I chat back and forth about, hey, what's new? Hey, whatever. So like when we needed to buy a digital thermometer, she's the one who sent me the link and said, hey, this is the one I got at Target, so that we could get one too. So just having a little bit of communications between the two of us to make sure that we're able to think things through together and think about how to move forward. So we're not quite ready to reopen, and we're not ready to reopen by appointment, but it's something that we're working towards. Just because I hear you. I have someone who's waiting in the queue for curbside pickup right now who said that she needed 12 cones of 8-4, but she didn't know the colors. So could I bring out 30 cones to her car and she could pick between them? That is, I hear that. I hear that and I appreciate that. So I am working on it. We're just prioritizing safety over sales. So
that sounds like a portable rainbow, and I really want to see that in action.
That is what I'm going to bring her. So I am just going to bring out the selection, and then she can, and we'll make it work. But we just want to make sure that it's safe. So
yes, of high priority. Thank you for answering that, and thank you for keeping us informed about how our plans are integrated with what the Textile Center has planned.
I'd like.
I think Celeste got cut off a second here. If she's on mute.
Am I? Oh, okay.
Oh, did you have more to add to that with Textile Center? Oh dear, she's still on mute.
Here, if I press my bar on the computer, it works.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that some of the benefits of doing it at the same time as the Textile Center is part of what will be required is that we keep a list of people so that we can identify them in case there's any, what do they call it, where they have to find people who've been in contact with someone who's got an infection. That would be just one list then at the textile center, as opposed to two lists that we have to keep straight. There's also I have some concerns about possible liabilities because somebody's temperature is medical information, about having that and then having to keep it, do whatever we need to do to keep it private. If there's just one spot in the building that is, and it's at the textile center, great. We don't have to worry about that. So there's little things like that that make it much easier for us to have one system rather than two. I know I hear every now and then people talk about what? We're going to let the textile center set our hours. No, that's not what's going on. It's really much more convenient to do it this way. So.
Yes, and I think what I'm hearing from you, Celeste, is that our priority is really focused on keeping our members safe and keeping your access and your interaction with everyone else who's also wanting to get in and visit and check out all the colors and cones, to keep like everyone's access safe. So thank you to Celeste and Karin for helping communicate that with the Textile Center. Thank you to members for playing along with the rules and regulations that we need to be following. Some of it is by choice, some of it is by state law. So we appreciate your support. This last question is actually for Celeste, so we'll go back to unmuting you. Celeste, would you consider shipping goods from fiber source instead of having just curbside pickup?
Well, that's a big question. It's a lot more involved than people think. We have one staff member. There's been discussion on this. I wouldn't say that it would never happen. I would say that it is more complicated than people are aware of, and more hands-on, time-consuming, and so it's a matter of priorities. So it's not a no, it's not a yes, for what that's worth.
Possibly coming soon, given different resources. All right, it doesn't appear like there's more questions coming in. It looks like there's a lot of great comments. Oh, hang on, there's one more here. Let's see, Karin, I think you could probably answer this one. Does WGM have the color sample cards that companies provide?
Yeah, mostly, but at this point, I mean, I don't know what that would do for us. I mean, we have some of them. I've always kept shop expenses to a minimum. So when they send me a note that says they've changed all their colors and I should get a new color card, I tend to not pay that fee and get another one. For many of the fiber that we do carry, we carry every single color. So a color card is going to the wall and finding all of them. And also I guess what I would emphasize in thinking about, putting product online is we just invented a system to do that for curbside pickup. We don't have an online checkout process. We don't have, an online store. I personally am viewing curbside pickup as a service to our members. It's not about making money. It's about getting product to people because I know that you're at home and you want to do something. I know that you want to work on towels. I know that you want to work on Christmas gifts. I know that you want something to do with your hands. And so at this point, it's making the best decisions with the services we already do have. And to think about if we would like to expand, we'd really need to put some finances that way, and we'd need a different direction that would say we need to, prioritize that, especially moving forward. There are so many ways that we could go with the Guild and so many different ways that we could try to serve you. So it is, I think, like Linda said, about prioritizing and focusing down. And yes, trying some new things, but also being a little bit strategic. So at this moment, you know, we're trying curbside pickup. We're seeing how it goes. We're seeing where that leads. If it goes well, maybe it'll lead somewhere else. If it doesn't, maybe we'll just continue it as a service, because we know that with COVID, not everyone wants to come in and shop. You know, so it's about just trying it out for now and seeing where we can go.
And it kind of sounds like once we kind of get to a point where we could have limited shoppers inside the store, it might be less demand to have the color numbers or the color cards readily available online or available for members to view.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just have to recognize, you know, we're a nonprofit. Fiber Source is one of the many functions that I'm working on. So, you know, just keeping in mind, you know, I don't know that we can necessarily compete with those giant yarn stores when that's all they do. But, you know, we have a blended operation. You know, our shop was really designed, at least initially, to support our classes. So at this moment, if we have fewer classes, then we need to re-envision, you know, what is the purpose of the shop? My vision right now is that it's to serve members by continuing to bring new goods. But if we need to change or expand that vision, then we'll do so. And I feel confident that our board that we have right now and our board looking forward, whoever that will be, you know, I feel really confident in our board leadership, in our committee leadership, who's really thinking strategically, who's listening to feedback from all different sides, who's taking in all the different ideas and, you know, and not immediately saying no, but saying like, yeah, let's think about that. Okay. Which is just really important, because at this moment, you know, it's about taking everything in, not just saying no, and moving on with a plan. So
I think that sounds like a really good idea. And it looks like there's some good ideas in the chat here too, about maybe looking at colors on other websites and published by other vendors, and then coming back to the Guild to buy your favorites.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you for everyone who's buying from the shop.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions at this point in time. If you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us board members. We are here to serve you and here to support you. So thank you very much.
Great.
Celeste, did you have any last words?
I was just going to say, it looks like we can adjourn, but really it looks also like we've had roughly the same number of people attend this as who ordinarily attend the annual meeting, which is great.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.